tonight I'm super excited to introduce James Ellroy, but I doubt for many of you James Ellroy is going to need much of an introduction. But to those out there who are just stumbling across this event tonight, there's really hardly a writer who's influenced American letters as much as he has since he started putting out books in the 1980s. Case in point, the new Everyman's Library collections of his Underworld U.S.A. trilogy and his L.A. Quartet, which is an honor that rarely goes to a living author as far as I know. And that influence applies to his chosen crime fiction genre and extends well outside of it as well, to international noir literature at large, to the burgeoning field of true crime, and into the film world, including those movies taken directly from his works like Cop, L.A. Confidential, and The Black Dahlia. Few have also captured their hometown as indelibly as Ellroy has always done with Los Angeles in series like the original L.A. Quartet and his ongoing second L.A. Quartet, initiated 5 years ago with his last novel Perfidia and continued here with his new one, This Storm. And if you couldn't tell by the front cover, this is in L.A. in the middle of World War II. And like Perfidia and his work at large, it's a vast swath of the city that he covers in all of its epic squalor and paranoia. And it is an epic in the style of one of style's masters. So few are better at actually capturing that style in writing than Ellroy himself, as you can see in his recent New York Times by the Book piece. Highly charged historical circumstances, these are quotes now, high moral stakes, passionate men and women in love, explosive language, vivid social critique, baffling crimes that hurtle superbly etched characters toward damnation and salvation. All sounds about right. So please join me in welcoming James Ellroy to Politics and Prose.
Live radio broadcast. Father Charles Coughlin, the Thunderbolt Hour, XERB Radio, Los Angeles, bootleg transmitter, Tijuana, Mexico, Tuesday, December 30th, 1941. Good evening and bienvenidos. A belated Feliz Navidad, and let's not forget Prospero Año y Felicidad, which means Happy New Year in English, and serves to introduce the Mexico at War theme of tonight's broadcast. And at war we are, my fellow American listeners, even though we sure as shooting don't want to be. But let's talk turkey here. Es la verdad, as our Mex cousins say. We've been in this Jew-inspired boondoggle a mere 23 days, and we've been forced to stand with the rape-happy Russian Reds against the more sincerely simpatico Nazis. That's a shattering shame, but our Jew-pawn president, Franklin Double-Cross Roosevelt, has deliriously decreed that we must fight der Fuhrer, so fight that heroic Jefe we regretfully must. But it's a ways off now, because we've got our hands full with the Japs right now. So let's meander down Mexico way, where the senoritas sizzle and more hell-bent jefes hold sway. Mexico connotes proudly Catholic, does it not, friends? Add theocratic republic to that. Add dutifully religious to that. It paints a picture, doesn't it? Yes. But the picture is wholly inaccurate and sorrowfully seditious, dating back to the tempestuous 20s and the repugnant red reign of Presidente Plutarco Calles. Item. Calles instituted a 6-year plan for social and political reform, patterned after Red Russia's 5-year plan. Item: Kala set out to eradicate the influence of the Catholic Church, barred religious festivals and processions, and created workers' collectives to counter the alleged excesses of industrial capitalism and further secularize the Mexican body politic, despite the stubborn opposition of the Catholic Mexican people. Item: Catholic bishops were forced to suspend public worship. Item: Colos's red shirt goon squads shuttered churches across Mexico. Item: Priests were murdered, nuns were raped, bishops sought South American asylum, and the Holy Mass was performed as a secret sacrament. Item: Cancerous Calas was succeeded by limp leftist Lazaro Cardenas. He was a motley mollycoddler of a less malicious sort. His anti-clerical policies bore a still Stalinist but less overt stink. Priests were still murdered, nuns were still raped, provincial despots still shuttered churches and satanically forbade Mass. Item: These practices continue under current Presidente Manuel Avila Camacho, a purported leftist centrist. Read that as one mealy-mouthed muchacho. And this brings us to the Cristeros, the rip-snorting, righteous Catholic resistance. The gold shirts, not the red shirts of the Calas Cardenas communist ilk. The armed home guard that fought fire with fire, killed red shirts, lynched communist commissars and apoplectic apparatchiks, and burned more than a few red reptiles alive. The Cristeros flourished under Calas and were forced into hiding under Cardenas. In 1937, they majestically metamorphosed into the Union Nacional Sinarquista. Sinarchism means without anarchy. Sinarchismo represents a full-fledged assault on the anti-Catholic left. Underground Untermenschen now enforce Presidente Camacho's atheistic agenda. The Sinarquistas magnificently mount a Catholic counterattack. The Sinarquistas are growing in number. They proselytize for a merged Catholic secular state. They've been called fascistas and Nazis, but that's all red hoo-ha. Yes, but they surely grew out of the Spanish Falange and Generalissimo Francisco Franco's valiant victory in the Spanish Civil War. And now, with the United States embroiled in a consuming world conflict, and with Mexico situated at our southernmost tip, will the green shirt Sinarquistas serve our best interests as the emergent world power, both anti-Axis and nationalistically non-red? Item: Mexico has remained neutral in this world conflict so far. Item: Presidente Camacho closed the German consulate in August of 1941, but has let a great many pro-Axis Krauts and Japs linger down Mexico way. Enter Baja California. Baja's that lurid lick of land south of our own San Diego. It's a hellish hotbed of fascista, comunista intrigue. There's a great many resident Japs. The Mex state police suspect the presence of a great many secret Jap submarine berths along Baja's Pacific coastline. There's talk of secret Jap air bases being readied for raids on U.S. naval installations and defense plants near Los Angeles. Enter Sinarquista boss man Salvador Abascal. Señor Abascal es muy católico. He's the Sinarquista spiritual and intellectual leader, and he wears Sinarquista's green shirt proudly. Like most male adherents to Sinarquismo, he wears a small SQ with a coiled snake encircling it, tattooed in the web of his right forefinger and thumb. He's a handsome man of 31, and Presidente Camacho seems to fear him. Item: the Sinarquista membership is growing in Mexico and the U.S. Item: punk patriarch Camacho has granted them land for an encampment at Magdalena Bay in southern Baja. Is he isolating the Sinarquistas, or is he readying them for some task? U.S. Army intelligence officers are now mobilizing in Baja. They will sort out the political gestalt and round up Japs in a replication of our own Jap internment efforts. What is the upshot here? Will Mexico end its neutered neutral stance and throw in with Uncle Sam? America is now alarmingly aligned with the repugnant Russian Reds and allied against the nefarious but nifty Nazis. Will the Mexican peso and the U.S. dollar tank? And will a new gold standard arise? And what about those ripe rumors? Nazis and Ruskies melting gold bars into swastikas and hammer and sickle artifacts. Mexico, my American hermanos and Christian countrymen. It's the southern gateway to our cherished shores. Will waterlogged wetbacks breach our borders and sap us with sabotage? Will the Sinarquistas come to our aid as a heroic home guard? Yeah! Good evening, peepers, prowlers, pederast pedants, panty sniffers, punks, and pimps. I'm James Ellroy, the death dog with a hog log and the foul owl with a death growl. I am the author of 19 books, masterpieces, all. They precede all my future masterpieces. These books will leave you reamed, steamed, and dry cleaned, tied, dyed, and swept to the side, screwed, blued, tattooed, and bafangooed. These are books for the whole fucking family. If the name of your family is the Manson family. If each and every one of you buy 1,000 copies. Hey, Jonathan, where are you? Put the skids to this over here, the pictures. If each and every one of you buy 1,000 copies of my new book tonight, you will be able to have unlimited sex with each and every person on this earth that you desire every night for the rest of your lives. And that's no shit. If each and every one of you buy 2,000 copies of my new book tonight, you will be able to have unlimited sex with each and every person on this earth that you desire every night for the rest of your lives, and still get into heaven as the result of a special dispensation signed by yours truly, the Reverend Ellroy. If each and every one of you buy 3,000 copies of my new book tonight, you get the sex, you get into heaven. And as an added bonus, the current president of the United States will be ousted, and I will take over in his place. You heard it here first, off the record, on the QT, and very hush-hush. Yeah! I put a spell on you. You ain't nobody's audience but mine. Let's cut back to February 2008. I'm living in my lonely divorce pad in Los Angeles. I am on the Class A watch list of Alimony International. I'm staring out my southbound office window, wondering why I don't have a girlfriend, and all of a sudden, it comes to me. I have a synaptic flash. I see a boatload of forlorn-looking Japanese in the back of a U.S. Army transport vehicle headed up a snow-covered mountain pass to the Manzanar internment camp in the winter of 1942. It hit me all of a sudden. I will write my second LA Quartet. I will take real life and fictional characters from my original LA Quartet, The Black Dahlia, The Big Nowhere, LA Confidential, and White Jazz, 4 novels set in LA, my smog-bound fatherland, between the years 1946 to 1948. Add to that real life and fictional characters from my Underworld U.S.A. trilogy, 3 novels set on a national and worldwide scale between 58 and 72, American Tabloid, The Cold 6000, and Bloods of Rover. I'm going to transpose these people to LA during World War II and portray them as significant people. This great synaptic burst continued. It might have been 2 minutes, it might have been 3. I'm transfixed. The first novel will be called Perfidia. It will be the story of the murder of a Japanese-American family the day before the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. It will cover the next 23 days in real time. It will be a massive novel, my biggest and greatest novel yet, until I exceed it with my new novel here on sale, Politics and Prose. You know what you get for 3,000 copies purchased by each of you. That's why I'm here. Perfidia, wildly praised international bestseller. This new book, right on the cusp of international bestsellerdom. You, my rigorous, altogether groovy, swinging interlocutors who will ask me the most invasively over personal questions that each and every one of you peepers, prowlers, pederasts, pedants, panty sniffers, punks, and pimps has for me. Only one topic is verboten. I don't talk about politics today. Whatever you do, don't ask me if the winter of 1942 is analogous to America today. I live in the past. As far as I'm concerned, it is the winter of 1942, and I rip-snortingly, rigorously deny the existence of all the subsequent decades that may have appeared. When I was 7 years old, 8 years old, right at the time my parents divorced, I used to hide out in one particular closet and thumb through old copies of Life magazine. Sometime in 1956, when I was 8 years old, I alerted my mother to the fact that I believed that World War II was still going on. My mother, a World War II vet, shook her head and said, "Sonny, the war ended 3 years before you were born." I didn't believe her then, and I don't believe her now. I am just that much of a fantasist, consumed by a divine gift for recreating my country, America, and my city, LA's past, and I adhere to a strict interlocutor policy. There is no now. I am a man of all ages because I belong to none. I'm just that great, and I am just that humble. Or, properly rebuked, as Golda Meir used to say, don't be so humble. You're not that great. Questions, please, audience. Yeah, boss.
Thank you very much. As you just mentioned, the Los Angeles put some true historical characters
Mhm.
here, some fictional
Right.
characters. I imagine maybe some of the characters are amalgams of different types of individuals. I would greatly appreciate it if you would share the origins of Captain Dudley Smith.
Captain Dudley Smith is an ongoing villain from the original LA Quartet, who appears in my 1950 set novel, The Big Nowhere, my 1950 to 1958 set novel, LA Confidential, and my fall into 58, 59 novel, White Jazz. He's a product of my imagination. I know no one remotely like Dudley Smith. He's a concoction. The grand design of my career has been a merger, merging the crime novel, the historical novel, and the political novel into epic length fiction. Thus, in Perfidia, set in December 1941, this new book, set in the winter of 1942, we learn Dudley Smith's backstory, what he was doing when he came over to America from Ireland in the 1920s, sponsored by Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. You're welcome. Yes, man over here.
If you could come up to the mic, or if you raise your hand, I can find you with a microphone, but just so everybody in the room can hear the question, that would be great. Yeah, thank you.
A question about what you think the books of the past, the books you write, the past that you live in and seek to inhabit, what do you think that offers us now? Why does it so capture us now? What does it offer us in the present? And what do you want us to experience when we read it?
History is its own language. It need not refract the present. It's the thrill of moving away from the hyper-digitalized age. You need not read just for your own immediate concerns. You should read, must read, in order to be transported to a place which you could never imagine. Reading should not be your search on the internet, which is bad for your eyes to begin with, your ongoing search for your next pair of shoes, your next sexual partner, the latest update of harrowing bad news. Submit to the will of someone who's very, very good, who has spent their life, by and large, living in a dark room in the past with a handle on obsession, with a handle on history, with a handle, and in fact, with a lock on character studies of passionate men and women. My job to you, God's gift to me, is to take you someplace that nobody else can go. And I'm determined to do that.
Thank you.
And I'll never let you down.
Thank you for not disappointing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, I'm a big fan. I've been reading your stuff since the early 90s. I think I've read 12 of your books. I was heartened to hear that. Did you say you're going to, after the next book in this series, you're going to revisit the wonderful series that started with American Tabloid? Are you going to continue that out into the future?
Well, Daddy-O, there's this. I'm a shit-kickingly healthy 71 years of age, and I intend to live a long time, but this isn't my call here in the end. It's going to take me 2.5 years to write the next 2 books in this series. From there, I would like to write the second Underworld U.S.A. trilogy. It won't follow up from 72 when the original trilogy ends. I'll go back to some time in the past, but I haven't figured it out yet.
Okay. And just another question. I was living in England when I first learned of you, and the Financial Times last weekend, they mentioned you have a big following in England because of my friends in England. I assumed, this place, I came here an hour and a half early because I thought it'd be really overpacked. And they said you're also big in France. Is your market really outside the U.S., or are you just as big here?
Well, proportionately, you prorate the French population to ours. What is it, 1/15th the size of America, France maybe?
1/6 maybe.
Okay, 1/6. Well, I sell twice as many books in France as I do here, and I'm a best-selling author here. So you can figure it out from there. I don't sell as many books in Britain. What's Britain? 60 million people, I think, combined, the UK. So you can make that case. I would say that among readers, the best readers on earth for me are the British. It's the same language. In fact, we here in America got it from them. But man, oh man, do I pack them in there? And do they love to ask the hard questions? And do they love to ask the specific questions?
Oh.
So I'm making a living at this, and have been for some years. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for all your books.
Thanks, man. God bless you.
You're the best writer I've ever read. So, the greatest crime novelist who's ever lived. But better than Chandler.
Thank you. Tell me where I send the check and how much, by the way. Yeah.
I've got a question right back here. And again, if you could line up at the microphones, that might help in the future.
Yes, I have a compliment and a question.
Okay.
My compliment is I really enjoyed the piece about Sal Mineo.
Right.
And I thought that was wonderful. I urge people to look that up on the HollywoodReporter.com. My question is this. Did the tremendous success of Curtis Hanson's film affect you negatively in any way? The LA Confidential.
Well, it's not a tremendous success, the movie. It tanked at the box office. And I went out recently with Brian Helgeland, who won the Academy Award. That's no guarantor of quality, by the way, winning an Academy Award. And we couldn't unload a sequel set in 1973 with the 2 original cast members, the Crow and Pierce characters, signed on, and another hot young actor. And so who knows about all that shit? It's the movies. I don't think it's a good movie. I think it's about as deep as a tortilla. I don't like most of the performances. I particularly don't like Crow, Basinger, Cromwell, and the other guys are okay. Pierce is pretty good, and Danny DeVito is pretty good. It's a very truncated Ellroy light version of my book. But that's okay. It also didn't sell a hell of a lot of books for me. It was roundly praised, LA Confidential. And the execrably praised, the Black Dahlia, sold, are you ready, 50 times as many books in 7 weeks as LA Confidential did in 22 years. So figure it out. But the thing about the movies is money is the gift that no one ever returns. And it's taken me off of the want list of Alimony International more than a few times. You're welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, thank you so much for all of it, obviously, first of all. But I'm just curious, what is the absolute latest period historically you'd ever be interested in writing about?
This is it. 40s in LA, my smog-bound fatherland. And if I live long enough, I'll write the second Underworld U.S.A. trilogy, but I don't know the time frame yet.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks again.
I like the haircut.
Thank you. I am a big fan. Question for you. I absolutely love your prose, and one of the things that always just floors me is your command of slang from the 40s and 50s era. I have no idea where you got that from. Has that just been something you've picked up over just your sort of immersing yourself in that over lifetime, or is there any places you look in particular?
Two great influences in my youth, the Lutheran Church and Confidential magazine and the other scandal rags. I love the American idiom. That's your answer here. I love racial invective. I love Yiddish. I love black hepcat jazz patois. I love alliteration. I love police abbreviations for penal code offenses, even if I don't know that the abbreviations that I'm using are correct. My books are rife with anachronism. I care not a whit for absolute factual accuracy. I'm out to rewrite history to my own specifications, and I love the language of it. There's that. I have always loved the language of it. When I was a kid, the pastor at my church warned the parents, every parent in the congregation, listen, don't let your kids read crazy cat comic books. And I think this was not because of any perceived subversive content, but because Crazy Cat was spelled Krazykat. Immediately after that, my dad started slipping me notes, spelling every hard C word with a K. Dimly, in my little rodent kitty brain, that's kitty, Kiddie, I perceived that language could be fun. And shock and appall and amuse, and we could all have a blast with it.
Hi, I'm going to follow up his question a little bit with another one about, and not just the language, but the details of, say, police work. Like when you have the cops doing an interrogation, the detectives in LA, there's like a little code they have, like touches his tie, it means, okay, telling his partner to change up. Where do you get, did you make those details up? Or if not, where did you find out those little bits of detail that aren't probably in any police manual, but probably may have happened?
I make it all up. Okay. I make forensic procedures up. And there's a reason for making forensic procedures up. When I started reading police novels as a little shaver, the age of 11 in 1959, I read the early Ed McBain 87th Precinct books. He goes into great detail, stopping the action of the books to describe exactly what the procedure is and entails, and toward what end. That's a yawn. It stops the book dead. Better to show my Japanese-American forensic chemist, Hideo Ishida, in Perfidia and the Storm, looking through a 2-lens microscope, dropping chemicals on a stained bedspread to bring up the stain and all the inherent bacteria, because the reader will figure it out and it moves the story along. I've got a great innate story sense and fact. Beyond the obvious, Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. Kennedy assassination, 11/22/63. There's some stuff you just can't mess with. But boy, the rest of it is fair game. And when an assistant I have prepares research briefs and I see yawning voids with no discernible factual through line, like the early days of the Japanese internment, I'm overjoyed because it gives me the latitude to fictionalize. I'm not out to give you the truth. I don't want to tell you the truth. I try to tell you the truth about human beings, and then I go mad. And with me, in the end, it's all verisimilitude.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Actually, I have a question about language too, in terms of, I guess, influences and who you've been reading recently that you feel like do something especially special with language that gets at kind of what you've been trying to do for yourself. Not necessarily somebody that's influenced directly your work, but that does something so special in the way they construct their sentences that it's noticeable to you when you read it.
I don't see any notable stylists at large in the English language literary world right now. There are stylists and over-stylists that I don't like at all, chief among them Cormac McCarthy, who I rag on in the New York Times feature by the book recently. And here's what I said for those of you like me who don't read the Times. I was in a colleague's office some years ago. I picked up a boxed manuscript. It was hokum about a boy, his dad, the end of the world. And the fucker who wrote it used no quotation marks, much like William Faulkner, another guy that I don't dig. And I thought I was reading a Mad Magazine spoof on end of the world novels. And the book turned out to be The Road by Cormac McCarthy. There are folks out there that I like to read right now, but none of them are notable stylists. Hey, give me a hair transplant.
You said the same thing at the MLK library when you released the other book to me.
To you?
That's hilarious.
I've been doing that. I've been doing that shtick.
And I was just kind of wanted to like slurk away.
You got the Kennedy hair, man.
Oh.
You got the JFK. You got that thing where it comes down like that. Yeah. My dad was from Boston.
You had it back in the day, I'm sure.
Yeah. My dad was from Boston, and when he'd see Kennedy on TV, when I was a young kid, he'd look at him, he'd go, "What a fucking head of hair. What a fucking head of hair. You're going to have no hair. You're going to be like me. And he's the president, and you're not going to be the president. Unless you buy 3,000 copies of this book tonight." Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry.
No worries.
You've been the goat here.
My dad was a doctor at Good Sam Hospital in Wilshire from 68 to 99, and he sort of was mildly obsessed with downtown LA place names, geography, kind of geographic history, and extension of question about the sort of names. And when you come to geography you use, to my sort of mildly untrained eye, it makes sense in terms of accuracy. To what extent is it just off the top of your head, or are you wedded to geographic accuracy in and around LA, or is that not that important in your mind?
There are wide swaths of LA that I know nothing about, like the San Gabriel and the San Fernando valleys, the beach areas. I grew up on the southern edge of Hollywood, where it abuts the Wilshire district. And I was born at your dad's hospital.
No kidding.
Wow. I was born at Good Sam in 48. And may rest in peace, Robert Kennedy died there in June of 68. Yeah.
Can I just, my dad passed away in April, and my favorite story he used to tell is he arrived there and saw the grass in front of Good Sam completely trampled, and he's like, "What kind of hospital is this? A place Looks awful. And the guards at the front desk said, "Are you crazy? They brought RFK here from the ambassador." And the press camped out for 3 days in front of the hospital. My dad's the senior partner. He joined this heart surgery group, did the tracheotomy on RFK when they brought him in to Good Sam.
History. It owns us. It shapes us in so many ways. Memory. What a gas.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I appreciated what you said about the difference between Raymond Chandler and Hammett. You said that Chandler wrote the man that he wished he were, and that Hammett was he wrote about the man that he was afraid he was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who was that man in your writing?
How do you mean?
Like the man that you are afraid you are.
It doesn't apply to me. It's history with me. It's all a riff on my mother's unsolved murder in June of 1958. And it's that moment when a policeman from the sheriff's department named Ward Hallinan squatted down at my kid level and said, "Son, your mother's been killed." The lives of policemen, it's a great theme of mine. If you had asked me what is the greatest theme of mine, it's bad men in love with strong women. I'm a romantic. I'm very, very sentimental about America. I am religious and sentimental in the extreme. There's that. It's constantly at war with my acute social sense and sense of history and my willingness to dive into the gutter. But I'm religious, I'm a Christian, and in the end, there's always some sort of redemption. I'm not running from any shadow that any other writer has cast. I am running from the shadow of a woman named Jean Hilliker, my mother. And on that note, I've got a second brief reading for you. Chapter 3, Joan Conville, San Diego, 12:15 a.m., 1:42. Should old acquaintance be forgot, and days of old lang syne? Yells and hoots, noisemaker shriek, shouted toasts and remember Pearl Harbor. Revelers crammed up the sky room. You've got Navy brass on a toot. There's grabbing and groping. There's full-length necking on the dance floor. Stan Kenton presents artistry and rhythm. The Misty June Christie purrs select vocals. The sky room was glass-walled and umpteen floors high. You got wide views of battle-dressed beachfront. You got storm clouds and the world's darkest sky. Joan dodged gropes. She clutched her purse and made for the door. She was half-gassed. L.A. was 3 hours north. Army checkpoints would stall traffic. The shoreline blackout would drop shroud-like. She dodged last-ditch gropes and escaped. She made the elevator and pushed one. Mirrored walls hemmed her in. They were too good to pass up. She winked. She whistled. She was too proud to falter and too tall and good-looking to lose. Her red hair, her green eyes, her bold 6-foot sway, her trim winter uniform, gold buttons and braid. Lieutenant Junior Grade J.W. Conville, USNR. You shitbird Japs better watch out. Two more questions?
Yeah, we have time for 2 more questions if there are any more folks. Yep.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you what, to the extent that you care at all about people who don't get you, what is it you think that they miss when they read your work or they hear you speak? What don't they get, and what are they missing?
Passion. Rigor. History. Bad men in love with strong women.
I could have read this interview with you maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago, I forget, but you said something about how, and it's a play on what you said tonight about how your work is, factually, incorrect, or, you just make shit up, but that it's mythically true. And so could you talk a little bit, it also probably plays to your Christian beliefs too, about the role of mythic truth versus factual truth. Do you have an interest in talking about that at all?
I'm a high school dropout. I'm poorly educated in the formal sense. But I live in myth. I live in great music. I've never had any affinity with rock and roll. I like jazz very much. But what I really live for is the music of the romantic composers moving into the moderns. It's all part and parcel of my looking back. Who's the greatest single artist ever spawned by civilization? To me, there's a general consensus here. It's Beethoven. And for over 60 years now, Beethoven and me, we're just like that. So I like to think of myself as the American Beethoven. He's mythic. That doesn't quite make him the German Ellroy. The great Joyce Carol Oates has called me the American Dostoevsky, and that quote is on the back dust jacket of the new book there. I don't think it makes him the Russian Ellroy. When you feel it, you feel it. I work deliberately. I write massive outlines. Every word must count. It's a benign form of megalomania. I get to beat the shit out of innocent suspects. I get to head juntas and coups d'etats. I get to spread bad juju around LA, America, and the world, and nobody gets hurt. That's why I say it's a benign form of megalomania. I live there, and it feels mythic to me. And I am intensely grateful for this great gift that God has given me, my flair for language, my ability to work hard, and my ceaseless desire to rewrite history. As a 12, 13, 14-year-old going to junior high, looking forward to summer vacation, I was always looking for a giant book that would hold me more than 4 or 5 days. Nobody was writing those books. And so many, many, many decades later, now, I don't write what I know as much as I write the books that I wish I could have read as a kid that nobody else was writing. That's my relationship to myth. Would anybody like to ask me concludingly ultimately, why do you write? Or all of you could ask me this en masse.
Why do you write?
In my craft or sullen art, exercised in the still night, when only the moon rages and the lovers lie abed with all their griefs in their arms, I labor by singing light, not for the strut and trade of charms upon the ivory stages, but for the common wages of their most secret heart. Not for the proud man apart do I write on these spindrift pages, but for the lovers, their arms round the griefs of the ages, who pay no praise or wages, nor heed my craft or art. Dylan Thomas. Thank you. God bless you.